American Go Association. I'm Chris Garlock, managing editor of the AGA e-journal, joined once again by Michael Redmond, 9-Dan professional. Today, Michael's going to be reviewing another AlphaGo Zero versus AlphaGo Master game. As always, before we get started, I want to thank all our AGA members. And if you'd like to support this content as well, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. So, Michael, good to see you.
Hi.
All right, AlphaGo, and we're excited to be continuing this. Folks seem to be very excited to have us back. Let's take a look and give me the rundown. What are the main things we're going to be looking at here?
Okay, first of all, this is a game with Master taking black and Zero has white. And so we're going to see Master's big shimari, and there's going to be a new variation to the way Zero handles the big shimari. So we're going to see a new variation in that, which is going to be a main theme throughout the series. So it's something really important in that. And then after that, we're going to be seeing something like a kind of a magic show where Zero is just doing all sorts of stuff inside this huge moyo that Master has. And it's going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be hard to believe.
This is the magic show game. I like it. I like it. All right, let's get going. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, so it starts the same way as always. So Master is playing this big shimari here. Mm-hmm. And there's various ways. And then, of course, Zero jumps into the 3-3 point. So so this is the same every time.
Right.
Up to this move. And so this is a point where I've marked the board a little bit, that talking about the invasion at A, which is still something that I would sort of hesitate to do, but it is being picked up by human players. And the fact that White's final move, which I'll just replay just now, this move here, is usually played at B. It would usually be played at B or pushing on the 4th line, but Zero likes to play here. So this is going to be the same opening every time that Zero has White. And this move that White has just played, White has a follow-up at C or D. And we've already been into White playing C. In fact, I think it's happened in 2 games so far. So this is game number 7. There were 2 games in which Zero continued with C. And so we saw 2 variations. Or did we? No, we saw the one at D maybe, didn't we?
I think we saw the one at D,
We saw the one at D. And we're going to see C in this game. We're going to see it. We saw it before, but we didn't see Black push through and cut. So it's going to be the first time we see that.
Cool.
And so Master plays a Kakari here. This is pretty normal for Master. Although Master does have various moves it can play at this point. It likes to play here, and it likes to play here on the upper side. It likes to play this big Kakari. And at this point, Master seems to be trying to control the center of the board. So it's playing these Kakaris on the upper side, but it's not really so serious about the upper side. So that's where you can see it throwing away the stone at A. But with this Kakari, this high Kakari Black has just played, you can see I put a B on the board, which is another move that Master would play sometimes. And so White presses here. So this is a move that Zero likes to play against this position Black has in the lower left corner. And the first time we saw it, I think it was maybe even game number 1. Black did not push through and cut. And so Black was playing elsewhere. But in this game, Black's going to push through and cut. And so this is the variation. We're going to see more games where Black does this.
Okay.
And there is a move that Zero plays every time. And that's going to be this one.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love this move.
And this move is a really sharp move that sometimes will work very well against the shimari. And you might remember that when I was talking about this move here, I was saying that sometimes White just goes ahead and plays at D.
Right.
So this is sort of, as far as AlphaGo is concerned, it's a kind of a key point. And it does work to a certain extent, but there's a lot of variation as to what can happen now. And Master, every time Master plays a Hane on the outside. And I've come to think that this is, yes.
This is not a Joseki, right? I mean, this is...
Well, I think AlphaGo thinks it's a Joseki. It had never been seen before before this series.
Okay.
Is what I think you were trying to get me to say.
It is what I was trying to get you to say. You got me.
And yes, and it's still this whole sequence here with the move here, which is not really. It's a difficult move for humans to copy because it looks so dangerous for white.
Oh, yeah.
I think humans would be the attachment at D is an easier move for us to play, and that has been played by human players. But this move at C is a bit difficult to make it work when black pushes through and cuts. And you're going to see why because of all the variations. But master likes to, I mean, Zero likes to do that and then to attach here. And master plays here every time. And I've come to think that this is probably a good move. But the other move that has to be considered would be this move. They're both very natural moves. So just to get into this variation, white's going to play a honey against that. And black's probably going to cut here. And then this kind of thing happens. And I would expect white to connect underneath. And so B makes a connection underneath. There's going to be a lot of aji with the stone at C. There's no way that black can capture that stone outright. So maybe black's just going to play here. White extends. Oh, actually, yeah, sorry about that. White extends and can capture, well, it's not a ladder actually. But so the fight in the center of the board is going to continue. But with these three stones that are dead, but there's still some potential of a bit of a squeeze there. There's a bit of aji there. It means that white's going to be able to continue fighting in the center. And I don't really know what's going to happen. So this is one variation, which looks like it's a pretty even fight. So this could have happened. I would have been willing to take either side and see what happens in this fight. So I'm calling it an even result. But to get back to the game, that's not what Master does. There's in any of the games that were disclosed. Master plays here every time. And so now Zero plays one Atari here. And in theory, this move that white plays here is making the marked stone lighter. It's reducing the value of that stone. So it's kind of an indication that Zero is bearing in mind the possibility of throwing that stone away. That's sort of the main line of white's plan here. And then white plays the honey here. This is kind of a must move. White has to play this move. And this is another branching point because there's two moves that would immediately spring to mind for me. And Zero plays the third one. Yeah, so it
two moves that would occur, and Zero plays the third one.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
and this one
I heard that right.
Master plays the third one, sorry.
Right.
So it's sort of strange. Like I would expect black to be cutting here or playing underneath here.
Right.
And these are both feasible as far as I can tell.
Okay.
So I'm going to go through the cutting move is like sort of the most obvious move. So we'll start with that one. White extends. Black will hang in there in the corner. Black doesn't want to give a big corner to white, so black's going to hang in there. White's probably going to curl around. Black, and you can see there's a semi forming there in the center, so black has to clamp the stone to win the semi there with the three stones on the left, and white's going to cut underneath.
Wow.
And this is where I've made some sub variations because when white cuts here, there's a question of whether black wants to capture that one stone in the center, or so I'll show you the two moves, or to capture here, which would give white trouble on the left there, or the safe move is to connect here. So black has a choice here too. So if black connects here, well, locally, the variation that I can make with some confidence is that if white plays here, it's going to be a fairly it's peaceful result. Like the black gets the lower side and white is connected just because, let's mark that stone, just because these two stones are still on the board, there's no way for black to cut white off on the side. So that means it's relatively safe for white, and white's building influence towards the upper part of the board, and black is getting a lot of territory on the lower side. So this is kind of an even result. What I don't know, and I'm not going to be able to make a good variation for you, is what happens if white gets fancy and does something like this, which is something similar to something that happened later in the game. And the reason I'm not going to go into this variation is because there's a lot of possibilities and I don't really know what's going to happen, to be honest. And like it looks like it's white could potentially make a lot of use of this stone on the left, but both players will have a lot of choices in this fight, and like there's no one variation that I can show you that I can confidently say will happen. I have some ideas. I might have fun playing it in a game, but yeah.
Right. These Zero games are so deep. I mean, they're really complicated, right?
They're really complicated, and you're going to be excited by this game because it's really very, very exciting. So that's what I think happens if black connects here. And just to go into the other variation, if black plays here, this is much more troublesome, because if white does something similar to what I was doing here, then this is going to be a more efficient move. You can see that white's not connected on the left side now. Right. So white has to get more aggressive too. White's going to play here, and this is going to start a semi in the corner.
Whoa.
And so black has just extended the moves there. Black has extended liberties, and white has to connect. And now this is a semi here. So so far it's pretty straightforward. And white can cut here once to extend liberties. So this hane here underneath gives white some extra liberties. And then we're going to get a semi, which white is actually going to win.
And a bad feeling.
But yeah, well, no, it's not a bad feeling. But white's going to win this semi. There's a bit of aji there with a black move at A. So it could be some kind of a ko eventually, but it's going to be favorable for white. So you can sort of think of it as a one semi for white. But of course, black has a great position in the center too.
Gotcha.
So this is another. I'm going to call this an even result too. So there's a lot of even results that I'm getting here, and but they're just not moves that master is playing. So to come back to this point, I was talking about this move, right?
Right.
Well, this one it's another. I only have one variation for this one, so don't worry. White's going to connect and cut here, and can make a lot of bad aji here. So this is where black plays here. White's going to end with the move at B, and white has to push out here. White's in a bit of a cramped position, but once white gets out,
nice shape.
Yeah, but of course, once white gets out, black has a lot of stuff to worry about in the corner.
Right.
So black's going to put a stone in, and white's going to push here. And this kind of fight happens. But you can see there's a cut at C that black has to worry about. There's
I
cut
was wondering about that.
Just to give you one variation for that. I stopped here, but just to show you what might happen with C. If we have black being, oh, sorry, that was a mistake, being very cooperative, then white's going to win the semi by one move.
Oh, dear.
So, but that's conditional, because at this point, black might be playing away. And that leads to a completely different thing, because now white's in trouble.
Wow.
So there's some timing involved there. White has to be careful about when white actually goes after those two stones. But there is that potential there that white can eventually cut at C at some point if white sort of sets it up by strengthening the mark stones on the side. And so the local fight here in the center is going to be advantageous for white. But you can see that black has a lot of territory on the lower side.
Yeah.
So again, this is what I'm going to be calling an even result. So it maybe I'm just voicing my ignorance, but they all look, both these moves look like they could have been played by black. Right. And they look like they end in even results. But actually, I sort of like this move that master plays every time. Because I get the feeling that the result that master gets in the game is actually maybe good for black. So why is Zero playing it every time? That's the question that remains unanswered. Because I actually think that while I'm finding even results for both of these moves, my final conclusion is that maybe this is the best move after all, because it's giving master a good result.
Right. That makes sense.
So white cuts here and plays here. And this is kind of a forced sequence. And this is another branching point where Zero plays. This is confusing, isn't it, when they're both AlphaGo.
I know.
Zero plays here at the time. But this is a bit more clear-cut. What I'm pointing at is white could connect with this. This is the Tesuji connect underneath. But in that case, black gets to curl around here, which is a really big move, threatens to capture white. So white has to answer that. So allowing black to get this exchange in is a bit painful for white. And so this is a good result for black. So that explains why Zero doesn't play this Tesuji to connect underneath, but plays here every time. Now, if black answers at A, now white's going to play at B, and that's going to be much better than what I was just showing you. So master plays this nice Tesuji. This is a Tesuji to squeeze white while these two black stones are not captured yet. That's why black's playing it with all the Ataris. Black has to play by Ataris in order to keep white from capturing those two stones. So white has to move out, and then this honey underneath. Now, this is a Tesuji that especially Q players should remember. It's something to learn from. It's a very nice Tesuji where black can break through here with Sente. Obviously, if white escapes, why don't we do that too? If white escapes, black can just break through. And this is very destructive to white's position on the left side. So this is good for black. White has to answer here. And then black can just play away. Black's already accomplished a lot here and doesn't have to save those two stones that I'm about to mark on the lower side. Black doesn't have to save stones.
Too small.
Now. Yeah. So it's better for white just to take. But again, black has broken through on the left side. So those three white stones on the outside are sort of isolated. So black plays here on the top. And you can see black's starting to build some nice influence towards the center. And so that's why I think I like this variation for master. But Zero's not worried about this black moyo. And you're going to see what it does about it later in the game. It's going to be a lesson in Sawaki, you might say.
That's the magic show, right?
It's a lesson that you won't want to try to copy because it's going to be really hard to execute. So white curls here. This makes sense too because the three stones on the left side are isolated now. So white has to play here at least to make it small for black to try to capture. Once white has played here, even if black continues to play on the left side, it's going to be very small now. So it's not really worth black's while to go after those three stones once white plays here. So, of course, black plays away. So this move, it makes sense to me. Black's starting to build towards the center. There's the possibility of attacking that white stone in the middle of the upper side. So it's a very natural move. Like the joseki would be to jump into the through 3-point or something like that. It's not the right joseki to choose in this board position. So you can see quite a lot I'm going to be agreeing with the moves that master plays. And sometimes a bit doubtful of the moves that Zero plays.
Interesting.
And it's just that part of it is that master is so much easier for humans to understand. I think there's that difference. Right. And I sort of still suspect that maybe master has the better opening. But you know, I'm sure that the people at DeepMind and AlphaGo itself will probably not agree with me. But you know, I get that feeling there. Well, of course, Zero does show super strength in the middle game, and right. That's why I sort of think that might be its strong point. It's calculating abilities.
Well, two things. First of all, it's your commentary, so you get to say whatever you want. And secondly, you know, again, folks, we've been working on the AlphaGo book, and Michael really does love these master games. We're almost finished with, I think we're doing, how many of the master games? A bunch of them. I think it's the biggest group, right?
About 8, I think.
Yeah.
About 8 master games.
Are you sad that we're almost finished with those, or moving into the next batch, or you're ready?
I can still think about them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
master was it's very easy for us to understand and easy for us to think we can use the same strategies, and that's why so many pros are actually playing the master moves.
Right. All right, so what's going on here?
And so white plays a double extension, And so at this point, white seems to be trying to reduce the center moyo. And black also is playing here. This is a move that you sometimes see against this shape. It's sort of reminiscent of what white was doing in the lower left corner.
Sure,
but the idea here is that black's going to allow white to get some territory on the upper right, in the upper right area, and black is trying to close off the center in the process. So this is a very sort of typical of master set of moves, where master is forcing white to capture that black stone there on the third line, and just curling around to shut off the center.
Such a nice sequence.
And this is a really weird move that it's pretty unusual even in AlphaGo's games. I've seen another AI play it too, so maybe there's something to it. It's a very strange move because when white extends here, there's all this aji of a peep here, which is sort of troublesome. So the usual way to go about this is to play a double hane here,
right,
and then play an Atari from above, and white's going to capture the stone anyway. And then black can just play some. And this is, and with the stone at B, obviously black has lost something by allowing white to capture the stone at A.
Sure.
But black didn't have any plans in that area anyway.
Right.
So the fact that black has a stone at B is going to reinforce black on the left. So that's the way I would think. But apparently master doesn't seem to be worried about the bad aji on the outside there, which would really be bothering me. It still bothers me.
I can tell.
Yeah. And then, I don't understand the meaning of that move, but black pushes once more and suddenly changes pace. So this is a point where I wonder if master is trying to reduce the number of variations, maybe, or maybe master thinks it's going to win, so it's trying to because it has a lot of variations that seem to lead to a win. Maybe it's finding the move that has the least bad variations, the least danger.
Sure.
So that's the kind of impression I get. Obviously, what I'm trying to say is that I would always play it A to shut off the center.
So
and that seems to be
right?
And I think that would be the better move, but there's probably some AI-like reason to play on the upper side at this point that I don't really agree with.
But
white,
you'll give him some room though.
Yeah. I think as far as AlphaGo is concerned, it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be good enough to win. And so that's sort of how I interpret this move that black played here. And white cuts here. When white cuts here, this is actually leaving a lot of bad aji when white will continue with the cut here. So that's the meaning of this cut, and the meaning of the fact that black is actually answering it, because white's aiming at a cut at C, and that would cause a great deal of bad aji inside the black moyo. So white's going to start a fight inside the black moyo, starting with a cut at C. And so master answers it. So this continues to cut off the 3 stones that are marked, but that's not really so important. It's not as important as the fact that now white cannot cut at A.
Right.
And what white has accomplished with this exchange is that now the white group in the corner has 2 eyes.
Right.
So white doesn't have to worry about black playing this move at some time, which before this move, at this point, it was this capturing here for black would have been a forcing move. But after this exchange, it's not forcing anymore. So that's the difference and the value of white playing that capture on the left side. And so white jumps out into the center. So this reduces the scale of black's moyo, and it sort of splits black's moyo into 2 areas, the upper side and the lower side. But master seems happy to continue surrounding it. So this is where things start to get fun.
Wow. Whoa.
So we have this.
Whoa. Where'd that come from? Clicko.
And I can start by telling you this stone is going to die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like speaking in human terms, zero is aware of that fact. It's aware that it's going to die, but the question is, how how is Zero going to make use of this stuff?
Right.
So, for instance, locally, white has a big move here, but that's just involving that immediate area, like in the lower left corner. So, in some of the variations that originate from this, and we're going to see some of that in the actual game variation, white's going to find a better way to capture those two black stones on the left. So white's sacrifice here in the center of the lower side is going to give white some stones that make the left side bigger. But that's only part of it. Like there's multiple reasons. So they all come out, a lot of them come out in the game. So I'll be able to show you.
Okay.
So white just plays a honey here.
Right.
Black cuts. So this is just dead. There's no way white can save these two stones. And now white pushes in the center. So white's going to use some aji created by this exchange with the attachment at A on the lower side. And at this point, it's not really obvious how that's going to happen. So black plays the double hane.
Yeah.
Like this is what black was sort of preparing to do with the original play. So this is just black's just playing the sequence that black was planning to do. And so now white starts again on the lower side. And there's no hope for this group, but white stops here and now plays here. Now this, this is immediately, it's threatening to push at A. Let's see what variation I put in. Let's see. Yeah, so I put a variation for black extending, but I should also show you the immediate threat. Like if black plays something like this, white can push here and cut here.
I see it. I see
and we have a ladder.
Yep.
So if white captures these two stones in a ladder, it's going to be pretty difficult for black to kill it. Like sometimes AlphaGo might manage, but with Zero playing white, I would sort of be doubtful.
Right. It's a step ladder.
It's a ladder, yeah. So so black, what if black did not extend? Black played a hane here to fill the dame of these two. And black's worried about this hane at A. So this is where I get to show you what happens in the lower left area. If black plays the good aji move, which is this move, white will play a hane here. And white can force from the left side. So for instance, if black takes these three stones, white's going to... So this is sort of chiseled out an area. So a big block of black's lower side has disappeared. So this is one way that this whole thing could be used. So black plays here. This is going to reduce the value of what white was trying to do there. Like I could make a variation for white. Like this. This would not work this time because
cute.
This is just a disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
So it's not going to work this time. So that's what this hane here that black has just played. This hane here fills a liberty there, and it makes it bad for white to play at A. So white's going to work around that. So now white plays here. So this is starting to get dangerous because black would like to be able to play here.
Sure.
But this is going to be bad. So this is the first sort of trap that Zero is setting, because if black plays there, white's going to push here once, and it's going to cut there, and then the attack on these two stones, which locally is just not working, is going to hook up with the attack on these two stones. So white plays here. It's a kind of a ladder-like shape.
Yeah.
Like if black goes out here, it's going to be a double Atari.
Yep.
So I didn't originally put that variation, but if white squeezes here, now it's going to be a net.
Ah, that's so cool.
So there's a lot of danger when white plays here. And so this is the first time that black is going to be forced to back off a little bit and play here.
Yeah.
So black's giving up a lot of territory. So we can see this attachment. Why don't I mark it just once more? We can see that this attachment has gained a little bit by creating that hole at A, where white would originally not have a hole.
Well, and also, Michael, this is showing the your preferred sequence here. You wouldn't, I don't know if it'd be, I think it would be better, right? If you played on the right, so the hanging connection, you would be happier, right?
Oh, that didn't have a direct effect on what I was showing just now.
Okay.
But it does. I would rather go back to this this move. Oh, I have to get. Let's see. That move black played on the upper side, though. Let's see if I can get back to it. No, I can't. Shift clicking didn't work. This move here, where I would have played at A.
That would have fixed
just
it.
the fact that white got to play this move in the center, it makes a big difference.
Right.
And
Right.
this is where all of the bad aji starts. This knight's move that white plays in the center.
So good, so good.
And so yeah, we get to this confusion on the lower side, and black is forced to back up a little bit. So white is gaining a little bit at A, but that's not enough. Like, you know, if you look at this area as black territory, and you can assume that black's going to get something on the upper side too, the game still looks good for black.
Okay, all right.
It's a huge moyo. So now white's going to push through, and black cuts here. So black's actually cut white off here. And so it looks like the whole center is going to turn into black's territory, right?
Yeah, it
but
does.
It's not going to happen. Black, now Zero is just happily going to make life. And it's really amazing the ease with which Zero manages to do that.
And all those black stones. You got little white fishies swimming around in a black sea of stones. It's crazy.
Well, black does have to worry about that situation on the upper side, of course. Because if white jumps out somewhere around here, then that black wall on the right is also eyeless. So there's a bit of a problem there, which black handles by playing here.
Right, right.
And so white cuts here. and you can see this problem on the lower side is sort of coming back to life. Now white plays here. And this is still white trying to get something on the left side of that lower side area. So black curls around, white extends, and black backs off. Because now you see, because of this, I was showing you a little squeeze there before, but because of this white stone, now it's black cannot squeeze. So black is taking losing a bit of territory there. And now you see there's no way for black to capture this stone. So black's next move would be to push through on the third line, and white still has a bit of profit there. So white plays this exchange to gain a little bit towards the lower left corner. Again, that's not going to be good enough. But there's a secondary meaning, because there's all this aji with these three black stones potentially being put in Atari. And so white plays this far and then plays this Atari in the center. It still looks like it's going to die, right?
It does.
But this is where master sort of gives up on trying to kill it. So the question is, like, what if black does something like, let's try it out, something like this, for instance. And the answer to that is, I don't really know. But white does have this forcing move here, which white doesn't really want to use yet, but white could try stuff like this and this. And with the peep here, let's mark that. With the peep here, there is some aji there. It looks like white could be making some trouble in general. But obviously, this is what I would be trying to do with black. This is the way I would play with black. But somehow, master decides that it's not going to work. And this is a huge move. It captures the three mark stones. And so I get the idea that master still thinks it's winning. And
but I get this idea that Zero is just toying with master. It's just sort of sprinkling stones about.
Yeah, if this is a magic show, I'd say that, yes, master is the Joker, you might say, or the clown. But looking at the position and looking at how it turns out in the next few moves, I still think it's good for black.
Yeah.
But there's another move that Zero's going to show us. It's going to change that. And so white captures here, and black. This is actually a tessuji. Black's making use of the one stone in the corner, this stone, and can squeeze there to reinforce the outside wall. So black stops there. And then black would like to be able to play from this side. But there's a lot of bad aji still in the center. Like white can push here, threatening the two black stones on the left. And then white can play here, and already, lo and behold, these four black stones are in trouble.
Wow.
Like if black, there's no way really for black to save them because white has this. You can see, I suppose, if black takes the stone on the right, it's going to be a squeeze. Why don't I make that variation?
That's so painful. Oh, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah. So this is
it hurts.
The moment white plays this move, that's already in the cards, sort of. So that's why I have black sort of backing off and allowing white to take the 4 stones. But this is something that white is threatening to do. So there's still that oddity, like white's using this sacrifice that white did on the lower side several times in various ways. And so black answers. And white gets to play in the center. And still, it looks like black has more territory. So black plays here. All black has to do, this is a pretty standard move. Black is playing from a strong position on the upper side. And if white plays too strongly here, then the whole white group in the corner could be in danger. So white plays this first. This is forcing. And here we go. So this move is actually a very good move. It's astounding. Like usually you would expect white to play here, I'm sure. I would expect to play here.
Yeah, I mean I thought that's sort of the area, the hot area, right?
Locally, this is the strongest move. And black cuts. White probably plays this way. And something like this is what would normally happen. Like it's a safe way for white to settle this fight. And black's going to win the game. Black just captured the 1 stone. Black has more territory. This sort of takes us into the end game.
Wow.
And black's going to win. So that's a good reason for Zero not to play that way. But this move is actually going to change what happens when white plays here next. So it's going to change the equation by creating some maji on the upper side. It looks like it's a ridiculous move. It's actually, now white plays here. Okay, this stuff that's going to happen in the center is not really relevant to what I'm going to be talking about on the upper side.
Okay.
By connecting these 2 stones, black's just sort of threatening white in the center. So white has to answer for a bit. And then black goes back to the upper side. Okay. And now white plays here. And this move in connection to the attachment at A is going to make a difference about the corner. And we can see for the time being white sort of threatening to live on the upper side. So in the game black played here, I sort of think it might have been better for black to play here.
Right.
And this is going to be just a little bit exciting and complicated, but we have a choice between white playing here and white playing here. So why don't this doesn't really look like a good move, but we'll do this one first because black gets a double Atari.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then black will return to save the territory on the right. And this also has the value of taking away white's eye space. So white has to try to connect underneath here. And when black does this, this is starting to look bad for white because white has to deal with the left side too. So if white plays here, then we can see white is on the way to collapsing now. White's going to lose those stones on the upper side.
Wowzer.
So that's bad for white. And so the culprit here was white's move here. White doesn't want to do that. What white does want to do is white wants to play an Atari here. Black would probably extend. Like not extending would start, black could play something like this, but this would start this huge ko, which is pretty dangerous for black. Right. And white does have ko-threats, at least one really big ko-threat on the lower side. So let's say that black plays here, and white's going to play here. And this is another branching point, like black can play here to try to save the upper side, or black can play here. Why don't we do this one first? And trash the corner, but white's not going to die on the side. White has a living shape on the side.
Interesting.
And this is a pretty interesting trade. It might have been better for black than the game, but you can see the whole upper side territory is gone, and now black has to worry about that black group there. So black has to continue to save that stone in the upper right. Black has to be connected to the left side, so that's going to cramp black a little bit. So that's what happens if black plays here. if black answers on the right, that's going to save black's territory on the right. But it means white's going to have an advantage on the fight on the left. So something like this might happen. This is how I think actually black should have played, because black does have a big advantage on the left side of the board there. And black's territory on the upper side is reduced a lot.
Right.
White gets the corner, but the left side is still a problem for white. So maybe this would have been still a difficult game, because Zero is going to sort of turn it around here. So to get back to the game, Master played here. It seems a very reasonable move, but with this exchange on the right, white's going to be able to make a forcing move. So white plays here and connects once. Again, this is threatening to cut on the fourth line. So black bumps against white. That's just a dead shape, right? But now white can play here, and white's threatening to connect underneath at A. So we get a few moves in the center that aren't really relevant to the upper left. But white does have to answer black for a bit just to make sure white's alive. And black is actually threatening to play here to make that a false eye. Wow. So white's going to be dealing with that now in a very fancy way. And now black cannot play at A. So now what Master did was Master played here. And this is going to be a very close game. What we have to work out is what happens if black plays something in the upper left corner. This is the move that I would like to play. Extends, black plays here. And this is not a live shape in the corner, but for the time being, black has an advantage in the semi-eye. So white plays underneath here. Now black has to live in the corner. Yeah, so white crawls underneath. Black can try to kill it, but it's not going to work. Because white has, let's see, that's 7 stones. If we count a white stone here, which is going to eventually show up, that's 7 stones on the second line. It means black has to use a move to actually kill it. Black has to play underneath on the first line here. And black's shape on the outside just won't hold together. It's going to fall apart. And so this is going to be a collapse for black. So that's what white is threatening at this point.
Wow.
I'll mark the move again. White's threatening that with this move to connect up to the right and make a life on the upper side. And so black has to back off, and white captures the 2 stones. So it's a very amazing sequence there with which Zero has made a living shape. And it's still a fairly close game. Like this is going to end up with Zero winning by something like 2.5 points.
No kidding.
And that's 1.25, right? In the Chinese scoring.
Right.
And so, yeah, white adds 1 more stone to the corner now. Let's see. So black played here, and white adds a stone to the corner. So that's finished the fight there. You might remember, in my estimation of what I thought might happen, this fight here between these 2 black stones and these white stones, black was capturing the white stones.
Right.
But now white has captured the black stones.
Wow.
So that's a big difference in territory.
Huge.
And this stuff that happened on the upper side here, white has played from underneath, so black did get a small gain there, but it's nothing compared to what happened in the corner. So this was a huge gain for white compared to what I thought was a normal result. And so white's doing a lot better than I would have expected. Of course, black does get to play this big point in the lower left corner. That's the final big point. So now we get to see the end game.
Cool.
White's trying to make some trouble in black territory. Basically, white's sort of manufacturing a forcing move somewhere around here, and to do with the end game in the area. So black answers, and then white moves back to the center. And this is the final big move. This is a big move because this is, if white plays this move underneath, for instance, let's just do that, then black can connect and white still has to defend against the cut on the second line. So it's more efficient for white to play here and have these 2 stones actually captured by black so that white can push through and cut off in the center. So white has actually captured 8 black stones. But the upper
Right.
side territory was big too. Capturing those two marked stones that have just disappeared from the board was big too. So black doesn't really have a choice. The upper side was more important.
Wow.
So black moves in here. And yeah, so this is all pretty exciting. What's happening with the board?
Hugely exciting. It's amazing.
Because there's this variation on the left side where black is going to capture some white stones, maybe. And so the end game here is it's very good. It's sort of a demonstration of how good AlphaGo can be at the end game.
The flexibility is just phenomenal, isn't it?
And yeah. And so yeah, all of this is very. It makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, it's just an end game sequence. And so you can see I've stopped making comments. It's sort of beyond me to make comments. I think they stop in the middle of the thing anyway. Let's see how far they go. It's very straightforward endgame at this point. Everything's alive. Yeah, and they stop just shortly before the game ends. So where you would expect the game to end anyway. So let's just go to the end of the file here.
Wow.
There's still a few moves to be played. Like there's a point here that black has to play before the game ends.
Right.
There's a little ko here. There's a few moves that have to be played. There's another ko here. There's stuff here that would be tidied up before the game. But in the end result, white is ahead by 1.25 stones. So that's 2.5 points in the Japanese system.
Now you're saying that essentially it was after that upper left, the magic in the upper left-hand corner, that's when white got the winning edge, right?
All this stuff that happened here.
Yeah.
Like just looking at it for the first time, I didn't really understand what white was trying to do.
Yeah.
And the same with this stuff that was happening on the lower side.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's going on here, and I didn't know. But seeing it in action and then going into all the variations, it's actually working. And like with human players, there's some players who are really good at doing this kind of stuff inside the opponent's moyo and all that, like Chochkun, for instance, if I was to name someone.
Sure.
He usually does it just once in a game, He doesn't do it over and over again in the same game. He's usually satisfied just to do it once. Mm-hmm. So it's really amazing to see this kind of stuff happening over and over again, especially with the attachment here, the way white was sort of doing it in stages and using this move in different ways as the game continued, like with this move where white was looking at stuff on the left, and then black played here to refuse white's move at A, and then that sort of white managed to use both that and the aji from the center. So like when white played here, black had to back off a little bit, and then eventually white could play this Atari to set up the hane here. And then finally when white played here and captured the one stone in the center, all that bad aji in the center came back to life. So white's using this attachment on the lower side several times in many ways, just because black is also playing the strongest moves. Mm-hmm. Black is not really playing very protectively. That means that there's going to be some bad aji, and white's making very skillful use of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's very Zero particularly, it strikes me, is very, very patient, right? I mean, it really, I mean, it seems, it feels, and I remember this from the games we were doing before the break, that it feels like it's willing to just sort of do these things that are right on the edge of possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And just you mentioned something about laying a trap. I mean, obviously, a master is going to see this, but creating these situations where the choices are all tough.
Right. Well, the computing power is really awesome.
Yeah.
It's not something that we are seeing in the Master series. Yeah. there's a lot more fighting in the self-played games, the self-played series, which I also enjoy a lot. And since that is what I'm calling the KJ version is a relative to Master, of course, it's just a more developed version of the same thing. Maybe Master did have this ability to read super complicated positions, but it wasn't really showing that so obviously in the Master series. But in these Zero games, AlphaGo is really showing superb computing power.
Yeah.
It's really astounding, all this stuff that's happening. It's very difficult to work it out, actually, but when you see these moves working, it's really very entertaining for me also.
Well, I feel like this is part of what I say every game, but it's true every game, so I'm going to say it, which is, I and all of our viewers really appreciate, you taking the time to work it out, because, it is, and I've been, again, folks, keep those comments coming. I do read them all. We'll probably do another video at some point responding to some of those specific questions and comments, but this is a huge amount of work, sort of reverse engineering all of this. And I know it's fun for you, but it is.
Well, it's very valuable too, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it's valuable for us too, so we appreciate it. So thank you. Great game, and really appreciate that. Thanks everybody for watching. One last thing before we go, just another big thanks to all our AGA members who make videos like this possible for the Go world community out there. If you'd like to support this content as well, and we hope you do, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. Thanks again, and we'll see you all next week.